Hello, I would like to talk to you today about using maps to gather data. It's not something people necessarily think of as a method, and yet it's a very flexible method with a great deal of scope. Maps for gathering data can be very simple, just maybe a few concentric circles, from smaller to bigger, of course, on a piece of paper. Sarah Eldon used these to create circles of closeness when she was doing research with young people about their caring relationships. She got them to draw themselves in the middle and then draw people who cared for them and people they cared for at different distances, depending on how close they felt to that person. The closer they felt to them, the closer they drew them to themselves, the less close ones they drew further out. This is also used by market researchers who like to map our closeness to brands. So you may have come across it in that context. So that's a very simple form of mapping. But equally, mapping for research can be very complex. Mapping can help to reveal relationships between all sorts of things, thoughts and feelings, places, objects, other people, concepts, past and future, and so on. Let me give you some examples. You can create a thematic map which shows variations on a theme. This can be useful to do during data analysis, although it can also be used in data gathering. A choreographic map shows people's movements during a performance or an event. So theatre researchers might use choreographic maps in their data gathering. You could equally use them for showing people's movements or people's intended or actual movements in public places like shopping malls. There's lots of scope here. A social map can be used to show people's relationships or their networks with each other or with other places or with other things that affect their social lives, like venues, for example. A concept map shows the links between different ideas, a little bit like a mind map. But looking at concepts, this can be useful when you're reviewing literature or working with documents as data. A cognitive map can show people's perceptions and how they interlink. A transect map is more about the world, shows the location or the distribution of resources, or the uses of land or space, or all of those together. A narrative map can be useful. Think of a timeline. You can make a long timeline with maybe different months on it, or different years, or different decades to show what's happened about a specific issue or to a specific person or organisation during that length of time, or what's intended to happen. And this can also be very useful for data gathering, as can a body map. Body maps are fun. You get someone to lie on a big piece of paper, draw round them so that you've got a life-size body figure, and then you can map people's feelings, people's experiences, their physical experiences. Very useful for embodied research, or in other kinds of research. You can use a body map so that people can map their ideal shop assistant or professor or transport worker or whatever it is you're researching, as well as their worst case, and then you can compare the two. There's all sorts of creative ways you can use maps, and in this short video I can only give you a few examples, but I hope increase your awareness for the options so that you might go and do a bit of further investigation if you think mapping could be useful for gathering data, or indeed other parts of your own research. You can even invent your own kind of map. So, for example, Colleen Campbell is a Canadian field researcher. She's a biologist. She studies bears and coyotes in the Rocky Mountains in Canada. And she became particularly fascinated by people's relationships with bears over time. And she invented a map called an Ursa graphic. Ursa is the Latin for bear. And her map is the map of the whole of Canada, and she's mapped every place that she can find where it is named for a bear or something to do with a bear or bears in any language that's ever been spoken in that part of the world. It's still in process, but it's quite a fascinating thing. So you too might want to invent your own kind of map to use in data gathering or in other parts of research like analysis, presentation, literature reviewing. There's lots of scope, but I think maps are potentially particularly useful in gathering data because they're very easy for participants to understand and to take part in. When you're talking about mapping, it's pretty straightforward, unless you've got participants with a particular kind of dyslexia or dyspraxia or some kind of literacy difficulty or cognitive impairment. If you have participants in those kinds of categories, you might need a plan B. It's often worth having a plan B for creative data gathering in case you meet someone who can't or doesn't want to engage with your plan A. But in general, most people will be able to use maps quite readily, and they will offer rich and fascinating data.